"We're done," Kyle texted. "Get your stuff from the storage unit." I stared at my phone in disbelief, the harsh glow of the screen illuminating my exhausted face in the dim hallway of my apartment building. Well, what used to be my apartment. The new lock on the door gleamed mockingly in the overhead light, as foreign to me as the coldness in Kyle's message. My name is Samantha Delaney. I'm 47 years old, and I just spent 10 days sleeping on waiting room chairs while my sister Vanessa recovered from emergency surgery. 10 days of hospital cafeteria sandwiches and vending machine coffee. 10 days away from my husband of 15 years. And apparently, that was all it took for him to decide our marriage was over. I sank down against the wall, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. The security light in the hallway flickered, casting strange shadows across the floor. I scrolled through the rest of Kyle's messages with trembling fingers. "I've moved your things to Unit 23B at Westside Storage. Keys under the mat. I pawned your jewelry. It wasn't worth much anyway. Sold the Toyota. You never drove it. My grandmother's antique locket. My wedding ring. The pearl earrings Kyle had given me on our 10th anniversary. All gone. The car I'd saved for years to buy. The one thing that was truly mine. Sold without my knowledge or consent." I pressed my hand against the door that had once opened to the life we'd built together. Teaching positions at the same high school, weekend trips to Lake Tahoe, quiet evenings grading papers side by side. 15 years of memories, now locked behind a door I couldn't open. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. In the silence of that hallway in Reno, Nevada, I made a decision. I would not scream. I would not beg. I would not call him 60 times in a row or camp outside the apartment. Instead, I typed back one message. "You'll regret this." Then I blocked his number. I found the storage key right where he said it would be and drove across town in a taxi. Unit 23B was small and dusty, containing nothing but a few cardboard boxes and garbage bags. My books, my clothes, some kitchen utensils he didn't want. 15 years of marriage reduced to less than 100 cubic feet of discarded items. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel near the hospital so I could visit Vanessa in the morning. As I lay on the scratchy bedspread staring at the water stains on the ceiling, I realized something that should have terrified me, but instead felt strangely liberating. I had nothing left to lose. I never expected to be starting over at 47, but life has a way of surprising you. Sometimes the surprise is a knife in the back. Kyle and I met at a teachers' conference in Sacramento 20 years ago. He taught physical education while I taught art. We bonded over our shared frustration with budget cuts and administrators who didn't understand the importance of creative expression in education. Kyle was charming back then, the kind of person who remembered everyone's name and never forgot a birthday. The kind of person who brought me coffee every morning just the way I liked it, and helped me hang student artwork before school exhibitions. The kind of person I thought would never abandon me. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? We'd been going through a rough patch ever since Kyle didn't get the athletic director position he'd been eyeing. He became withdrawn, spending more time at the gym and less time with me. I suggested therapy, but he dismissed the idea, saying we just needed time to figure things out. Then Vanessa's appendix ruptured, and everything changed. My sister had no one else. Our parents were gone, and she'd never married. I couldn't leave her alone in that hospital, fighting for her life. I thought Kyle understood that. I thought 15 years of marriage had earned me at least that much trust. I was wrong. The morning after I found myself locked out, I sat in Vanessa's hospital room, trying to keep my voice steady as I told her what happened. "That absolute bastard," she whispered, her face still pale from surgery. "I'll kill him." "No," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "You need to focus on getting better. I'll figure this out." "Where will you go? What will you do?" The monitors tracking her heart rate beeped faster, reflecting her distress. I took her hand, feeling oddly protective despite being the one whose life had just imploded. "I've got some savings. Not much, but enough to rent a small place for a few months. And I've been thinking about that arts administration program at the university. Maybe it's time I finally applied. Sam, Vanessa said, using my childhood nickname, you don't have to pretend with me. It's okay to fall apart. I looked out the window at the Sierra Nevada mountains in the distance, their peaks dusted with early snow. I'm not pretending, I said. I'm just done wasting time on someone who could throw away 15 years so easily. That evening, I found a small studio apartment I could afford on my teacher's salary. It was close to the school where I taught and had just enough room for my reduced belongings. As I unpacked my few remaining possessions, I discovered something Kyle had overlooked: my portfolio of digital artwork, backed up on an external hard drive. 3 months after Kyle changed the locks, I received divorce papers in the mail. He'd cited irreconcilable differences as the reason for our separation. I almost laughed at the clinical term for what had happened. Irreconcilable differences didn't quite capture the magnitude of coming home to find yourself homeless, your possessions sold, your marriage over via text message. The legal document listed our shared assets. Kyle had claimed everything of value: the apartment, the furniture, our joint savings account. He'd even taken half my retirement fund. According to his lawyer, I was entitled to nothing else, since I had abandoned the marriage by staying with my sister during her health crisis. I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the papers until the words blurred. The pain I'd been holding at bay threatened to overwhelm me. For a moment, I considered calling Kyle, demanding an explanation, fighting for what was rightfully mine. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. An email from the university. I'd been accepted into the arts administration program with a partial scholarship. Classes would start in 6 weeks. It felt like a sign. I could spend months, maybe years, fighting Kyle in court for material possessions, or I could invest that energy in rebuilding my life. I signed the divorce papers without contesting his claims, much to the frustration of the lawyer Vanessa had insisted I consult. He's walking away with everything, the attorney warned. You're entitled to much more than this. I know what I'm entitled to, I replied, and I'll get it back my own way. That night, I called my principal and resigned from my teaching position, effective at the end of the semester. 20 years in the public school system ended with a 10-minute conversation. I felt a momentary pang of regret for the students I'd leave behind, but I knew this was necessary. I couldn't risk running into Kyle in the faculty lounge or the parking lot. I couldn't teach in a place where people would whisper about my failed marriage. When I told Vanessa my decision, she was skeptical. You're letting him win, she argued. That school was your life before him. That's the problem, I said. Everything in Reno reminds me of Kyle. The school, our favorite restaurants, the park where we used to walk on Sunday mornings. I need a clean break. And then what? She asked. You'll get your degree and... I showed her the digital art portfolio I'd been working on. Illustrations, animations, and interactive designs I'd created over the years as a hobby. There are art therapy programs around the country using digital tools to help people process trauma, I explained. I've been researching them. With my teaching background and this degree, I could develop something similar. Vanessa studied my work, her expression softening. These are beautiful, Sam, but art therapy programs take years to establish, and you need to eat in the meantime. I've applied for a night job at the university library, I said. Between that and my scholarship, I'll manage. I have to try, Van. I need something that's completely mine. As I left her house that evening, the winter sun setting behind the mountains, I felt the first stirrings of something I hadn't experienced since finding that new lock on my apartment door. Hope. My new life developed a rhythm. Days in class, evenings at the library, late nights working on my portfolio. I barely had time to think about Kyle or what I'd lost, which was exactly what I needed. 6 months into the program, I was approached by Professor Winters after her grant writing seminar. She was a formidable woman in her 60s with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through you. Your project proposal was exceptional, she said, her tone matter of fact. The digital art therapy concept has potential. Thank you, I replied, trying not to show how much her approval meant to me. There's a summer fellowship available through the Carson Foundation. It provides funding for innovative arts initiatives with social impact. She handed me a brochure. The deadline is next week. I suggest you apply. That night, I stayed up until dawn refining my proposal. An accessible digital art therapy program designed for people experiencing major life transitions, divorce, bereavement, illness. Users would move through guided creative exercises that helped them process their emotions through visual expression. I called it Canvas Art Therapy Reimagined. 2 months later, I received the fellowship. It wasn't life-changing money, just $15,000, but it was enough to develop a pilot version of the program. I hired a programmer from the computer science department to help build the platform and spent every free moment creating content. By the time I graduated with my master's degree, Canvas was ready for limited release. We invited 50 participants to test the program: cancer patients, recently divorced individuals, people who had lost loved ones. Their feedback was overwhelmingly positive. For the first time, I could express what I was feeling without having to find the words, wrote one participant. I look forward to my Canvas time every evening, wrote another. It's helping me rebuild myself. I secured a small office space in downtown Reno with the last of my fellowship funds. It wasn't much, just a desk, a computer, and a view of the city where my old life had unraveled. But it was mine. I launched Canvas officially on the 1-year anniversary of the day Kyle had changed the locks. The first month brought 30 subscribers. The second month, 50. By the third month, we had over 100 people using the platform regularly. It wasn't enough to support me financially. I still worked at the university library 4 nights a week. But it was growing. Then came the email that changed everything. Ms. Delaney, I'm a producer with National Morning. One of our staff members has been using your Canvas program to cope with her mother's cancer diagnosis, and she's shared her experience with our team. We're interested in featuring Canvas in our Innovations in Mental Health segment. Would you be available for an interview? My hands shook as I read the email. National Morning was watched by millions of people across the country. This kind of exposure could transform Canvas from a struggling startup to a recognized brand overnight. I immediately called Vanessa. This is it, she said, her voice vibrating with excitement. This is how you show Kyle what he threw away. I paused, realizing something important. I haven't thought about Kyle in months, I said slowly. This isn't about him anymore. This is about what I've created. And it was true. Somewhere along the way, in the late nights and early mornings, in the code reviews and content creation, in the feedback sessions and grant applications, I had stopped defining myself by what I'd lost. I had become someone new, someone I liked better than the woman who had been so devastated in that hallway. The day before the interview was scheduled to air, I received an unexpected visitor at my small office. Janet, my former colleague from the high school art department, stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. I hope you don't mind me stopping by, she said. I saw the promos for your interview tomorrow and, well, I thought you should know. Kyle's been fired. Janet perched on the edge of the chair across from my desk, clearly uncomfortable with her role as messenger. He's been selling equipment from the athletic department, she explained. Weights, uniforms, even electronics from the coach's office. The new athletic director noticed the discrepancies in the inventory and started investigating. They found receipts from pawn shops all over town. I felt an odd detachment as I processed this information. How long had it been going on? Over 2 years, apparently. It started small, but lately... She hesitated. Things haven't been going well for him since you left. He's been drinking a lot, missing classes. The administration was already on the verge of disciplinary action when this came to light. 2 years. That timeline wasn't lost on me. Kyle's theft had started around the same time he'd begun withdrawing from our marriage, long before Vanessa's emergency or the locked apartment door. "There's more," Janet said, her voice dropping. "The car, your Toyota, the police are investigating the sale. Apparently, Kyle forged your signature on the title transfer. The new owner tried to register it and the DMV flagged it. I thought about the car I'd saved for years to buy. The car Kyle had sold without my knowledge or consent. The car whose loss had symbolized the complete dismantling of my independence. "Will they press charges?" I asked. "It's a felony, Sam. Title fraud, forgery. They're serious crimes. He could face jail time." I should have felt vindicated. Wasn't this what I'd promised when I texted, "You'll regret this"? But instead, I felt hollowed out. The man Janet described, drinking, stealing, forging documents, was a stranger to me. After she left, I sat in my quiet office, watching the sun set over the mountains. My interview was scheduled for 7 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, 4 a.m. in Nevada. I should have been reviewing my talking points, preparing for questions. Instead, I was thinking about Kyle, trying to reconcile the man I'd married with the person he'd become. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. The number was unfamiliar, but the Reno area code told me enough. I answered without speaking. "Samantha?" Kyle's voice was rougher than I remembered, with an edge of desperation. "Please don't hang up." I remained silent. "I saw the promo for your interview. You look really good. I'm happy for you." Still, I said nothing. "I know you know about the school, about the car. I messed up, Sam. I messed everything up." His voice broke. "I've been trying to call you, for months, for over a year. 365 calls. You never answered." I hadn't known about the calls. I'd blocked his number that night in the hallway and never unblocked it. Whatever messages he'd sent had disappeared into the digital void. "Say something, please." Finally, I spoke. "What do you want, Kyle?" "I want to apologize. I want to explain." "I don't need your explanation," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Whatever you did, whatever your reasons were, it doesn't matter anymore." "Sam, no," I said firmly. "You don't get to call me that. You don't get to pretend we're still close. You threw me away like I meant nothing. You sold my possessions. You locked me out of my own home." "I was desperate," he whispered. "I had gambling debts. I was scared and stupid and—" "Stop," I interrupted. "I'm not interested in your excuses. You made your choices. Now you're facing the consequences." There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow. "The police want me to turn myself in tomorrow. Then that's what you should do." "Will you be back from New York by then? Could we meet? Just once?" I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of our shared history pressing down on me. 15 years of marriage, the good days and bad, the life we'd built, and the way it had ended. "No," I said finally. "I don't think that would be helpful for either of us." I ended the call before he could respond, then turned off my phone completely. I had an early flight to catch and a new future to embrace. Kyle belonged to my past. The National Morning Studio was a whirlwind of activity. Production assistants with headsets rushed past, camera operators adjusted equipment, and makeup artists fussed over the hosts and guests. In the green room, I sipped water and tried to calm my nerves. 5 minutes, Ms. Delaney," a young woman with a clipboard informed me. I nodded, smoothing the sleeves of my blue blazer, the most professional item in my limited wardrobe. Beneath the jacket, my heart hammered against my ribs. "You're going to be great," the makeup artist assured me as she applied a final touch of powder. "Just remember to look at Jessica, not the camera." Jessica Chen, the host of the Innovation segment, had a reputation for thoughtful interviews. Still, I ran through potential questions in my mind, rehearsing answers about Canvas, its development, and its impact. What I wasn't prepared for was her first question after the cameras started rolling. "Samantha, Canvas was born from your own experience with loss and transition. Can you tell us about that journey? I froze momentarily. In all our pre-interview communications, we'd focused on the program itself, not my personal history. But as I looked into Jessica's kind eyes, I realized this was an opportunity to reach people who might be sitting where I had been, hollow and hurting, needing a way forward. 2 years ago, I began. I came home to find the locks changed on my apartment door. My husband had ended our 15-year marriage via text message, sold my car, and pawned my jewelry. I smiled slightly, aware of the camera but speaking directly to Jessica. It was disorienting, to say the least. Jessica's expression was perfectly balanced between empathy and professional interest. How did you move from that moment of crisis to creating Canvas? I explained my journey, the arts administration program, the fellowship, the late nights developing content. As I spoke, I realized how far I'd come from that night in the hallway. Canvas isn't just about processing grief or trauma, I concluded. It's about reclaiming your narrative, finding beauty and meaning in the midst of chaos. It's about rebuilding. The interview flew by. We discussed the scientific foundations of art therapy, demonstrated how the program worked, and shared testimonials from users. Before I knew it, Jessica was wrapping up the segment. Canvas is currently available for individual subscribers, but you have bigger plans, correct? I nodded. We're launching an institutional platform next month for hospitals, counseling centers, and schools. We've already partnered with 3 major healthcare networks to offer Canvas to their patients. Impressive growth for a program that began as a personal healing journey. Thank you for sharing your story with us today, Samantha. As the cameras stopped rolling, Jessica leaned over. That was fantastic. You're a natural. Back in the green room, I checked my phone. It had been less than 5 minutes since the segment aired, but my inbox was already filling with messages. The Canvas website had crashed from the traffic surge. My personal email contained interview requests from 3 other news outlets and 14 partnership inquiries from healthcare providers. Among them was a message with the subject line, "I saw you on TV." It was from Kyle. My finger hovered over the delete button, but something made me open it. I'm turning myself into the police this morning. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I truly am sorry, and seeing you succeed is the one bright spot in all of this. You deserve every good thing that's coming your way. Goodbye, Samantha. I closed the email without responding. Whatever closure Kyle needed, he would have to find it without my help. I had a crashed website to fix, interviews to schedule, and partnerships to evaluate. I had a life to live, one that no longer revolved around the man who had once thought he could discard me. 2 years after the national morning interview, Canvas had become more successful than I ever imagined. We had offices in Reno and San Francisco, a team of 20 employees, and over 1.5 million users worldwide. Our institutional platform was being used in hospitals across the country, and we'd recently launched a specialized program for veterans with PTSD. I was in New York again, this time to accept an award at the Digital Health Innovation Gala. The event was being held at an elegant hotel ballroom filled with healthcare executives, tech entrepreneurs, and investors. As I sat at my table, watching other honorees give their speeches, I felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. How had the broken woman in that hallway transformed into this person, the founder and CEO of a thriving company, about to receive recognition from industry leaders? And now, announced the host, the Impact Award for Mental Health Innovation goes to Samantha Delaney, creator of Canvas. The applause was thunderous as I made my way to the stage. From the podium, I could see hundreds of faces looking back at me, including James, my partner of 8 months, who was beaming from our table. Thank you, I began, my voice steady and clear. Canvas was born from necessity. When my life fell apart, I needed a way to put the pieces back together. What I discovered was that creativity isn't just an escape, it's a pathway to healing. As I continued my speech, something caught my eye at the back of the room, a familiar figure standing near the exit, watching intently. Kyle. Older, thinner, his once confident posture now slightly hunched, I didn't falter. I didn't acknowledge him. I simply continued speaking about Canvas, about our vision for the future, about the millions of people we hope to help. In closing, I'd like to share something a user wrote to me recently. Canvas helped me realize that my story didn't end with my loss. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. That's what I hope Canvas offers to everyone who uses it. Not just healing, but the chance to rewrite their story. The audience rose in a standing ovation. From the corner of my eye, I saw Kyle slip out the door, disappearing as quietly as he had appeared. After the ceremony, James and I were mingling with guests when an event coordinator approached me. "Ms. Delaney, there's someone who would like to speak with you privately. He says it's important." I knew who it was before she described him. "Tell him I'll meet him in the lobby in 5 minutes." James looked concerned. "Everything okay?" "It's fine," I assured him. "Just some unfinished business. I won't be long." Kyle was sitting on a bench near the hotel's grand entrance, looking out of place in his worn suit among the polished marble and crystal chandeliers. He stood when he saw me approach. "Congratulations," he said, his voice hoarse. "I read about the award in the business section. I hope you don't mind that I came." "How did you get in?" I asked. I told them I was with Oak Ridge Health. "They're one of your partners, right?" A ghost of his old smile appeared. "I've been following your success." I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just a profound neutrality, as if I were speaking to a stranger who happened to share some of my memories. "I served 14 months, he said when I didn't respond. "Got out early for good behavior. I'm working construction now. It's honest work." "I'm glad to hear that," I said, and I meant it. I didn't wish him ill. I just didn't wish him anything at all. "I keep thinking about what I threw away," he continued. "Not just our marriage, but the person you were becoming. I could have been part of this." He gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. "No," I said gently. "You couldn't have. This happened because you left." His face registered surprise, then understanding. Canvas, my success, my new life. None of it would have existed if he hadn't locked me out that night. "I should go," I said. "My partner is waiting." "You're happy?" he asked, the question barely audible. I looked back toward the ballroom, where James was chatting with colleagues, where my award sat gleaming on our table, where my future continued to unfold. "Yes," I said. "I am." As I walked away, I heard Kyle call after me. "Samantha?" I turned. "You were right," he said. "I regret it, every day." I nodded once, acknowledging his words without responding to them. Then I returned to the celebration, to the life I had built from the ground up, a life that was finally, completely my own. Looking back at my journey, from that desperate night in the hallway to becoming the founder of a successful company, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about making someone else suffer. It's about ensuring they can see exactly what they lost.